Okay, thank you everyone for coming for this important session on launching the carbon transaction facility. We're going to start in about 5 minutes because we're still waiting for our Director General, but he's coming shortly. I think if anybody wants to get a last coffee before, I think it's in the back. So please help yourselves.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for arriving a little bit late. We have been doing a lot of bilaterals back to back today, and it's good to see that so many delegations have now arrived and that we're here for this interesting event, the launch of our carbon transaction facility with so many partners here on the stage. I have to say that was a bit of a dream for a number of us here in the audience. Of course, we were blessed by having Fenella, who was a refugee from the first carbon market, the Kyoto-based one, that collapsed with quite a few other people. So she worked in GGI on quite a few different things until there were opportunities to begin to develop the second coming of the carbon market under the Paris Agreement. And I think we have to credit her to being one of the first to have the first idea of saying we should really get into that space. I think you'll allow me to say that I supported you from the beginning there. And we found very quickly some very strong partners, particularly in Norway and Sweden, to begin to develop capacity in developing countries to take advantage of Article 6. Once that got going, and as we were going to COP a few years ago, and we saw that the rule book for Article 6 was likely to be completed soon, Penella and I discussed and said we ought to really step up and try and create an opportunity for buyers and sellers of these new things, these ITMOs, to collaborate in a more truly equal platform. Because frankly, having observed the voluntary market, a lot of those mechanisms were quite buyer-driven. And we saw quite a few of our member countries. We often take Indonesia as an example, a large country with a pretty strong voice, who complained that there wasn't really a good opportunity for the voices of selling countries to be really taken into account. And therefore, we felt that GGI, which has a good opportunity where buyers and sellers, normally we don't refer them to that in that way, members of GGI can communicate, and we thought we should be able to use the Council of GGI as an ultimate governance platform to, in a way, create this proper platform for countries to together build this new mechanism. So it took us a year of quite a bit of consultation. That was 2023, wasn't it? Or was it 2022? That was 2022 when we had a lot of consultations to our MPSC and to our council. And in the end, we're very pleased to see that we had strong support from many different countries to give us a chance to put this into practice. So that, in a way, is my bit of introduction, that we were grateful that the Council of GGI, when this was just an idea, provided the support. Penella will give you a bit of background. We actually had a pretty solid, if you like, survey among our members that indicated there was a lot of interest. And then we found a number of good partners that you see here on the stage who were willing to help us operationalize this idea. I think I've said enough. This is a time to try and celebrate with the views of all of you, the operationalization of the carbon transaction facility. Enough said, Nella, over to you.
Sit and take a seat. No, sit. Yep. No, not allowed. Right. Hello, everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Fenella Awan, and I head carbon pricing at GGGI. I'm going to give you a very short, hopefully, presentation of what the carbon transaction facility is, because although it is my and our team's every day, we do appreciate that perhaps not everybody in the world is concentrating on carbon pricing. And I think to follow on from Frank's comments, I think your comments, so I think I supported you is somewhat of an underestimation. Amazing support and a very good pupil, may I say, to learn about some of the intricacies of methodologies and baseline setting and what the Guardian front pages might be trying to say. So yeah, an enormous amount of help, support, and it's amazing when someone says, well, go on, have a go and see what you can do. And you can build a team with the same enthusiasm as I obviously have for carbon markets. So let me just go through to, and I have no idea where I'm meant to be pointing this to. Nope, there we go. Right. So we started with, as we do in any new activity within GGGI, is really trying to identify what's the problem. So we had to have an evidence-based reason after the council, actually at the end of 2021, said go and investigate and see what structure may fit what the problem is. So as the council is made up of all our members, we went round all of our members and we said, what is the problem? What are you not? Why are you not participating or looking at participating in Article 6 based carbon markets? And what they told us is very clearly they felt there was uneven participation in transactions. And I think Frank's touched on that. There was a low confidence and capacity. I think we always in GGGI try and break down just the word capacity building and say, okay, but what is it? And we've identified, in order to do a trade, you need confidence. You need confidence that you understand what is happening within that transaction. And also knowledge exchange, which very pointedly is what are my peers doing? Not what a country with a completely different economic development stage, a completely different topography, a completely different size of population is doing. What are my neighbors doing? What is a country like me doing? And so that we felt is a key area where we could help through our membership basis. And then it's very complicated. There's a high participation burden. So if there's anything to send back as a little message to the negotiations this year at COP is please try and make it simple for the last bits that need to be approved. So we took that and we said, okay, now we know what the problem is. How are we going to fix it? And before we did that, I think it's worthwhile noting that this isn't the first thing we've done in carbon. We've been working with the government of Norway since 2019, very shortly afterwards. The government of Sweden on earmark programs. We work with the government of Germany on a very large ICI-funded program. And you'll see here a large number of other countries. So we're already working in 20 plus countries on Article 6 matters and with over five and more donors. But we needed to try and streamline this and work out how can we make it flexible. So we came up with the structure of the CTF. So it is a series of trust funds and it has two main differences, the different trust funds. There is a single multi-donor trust fund, which is the blue column on the left, which we are calling the Readiness Facility. And there are a number of green boxes on the right, which are single donor or they can be multi-donor trust funds. Why did we do this? Why didn't we create a single pot? And maybe the difference between the blue and the green will come to light in a further slide, but why not one buying fund? And what we did was we took lessons from where other organizations, peer organizations had attempted this. And we saw in a really nascent market, every buyer, every participant and contributor may translate the rules being set and defining areas that don't have rules at the moment differently. So whilst in a nascent and very start of the market, it might be quicker. It's all about the speed. The climate goals are there for 2030, not for when we've all agreed and sorted it all out, which may take rather a long time. So we said for the moment, it will be much easier if everybody has their own buying trust fund. So if you think about this model in practical terms, it's the help to understand, help to see what peers are doing through a global knowledge exchange, but then also a learning by doing. Our countries are recipient countries of finance, so our developing country and emerging market members have indicated it's great to show us the plans, it's great to show us the strategies, but we also need the finance. So the urgency was how could we complement the work that GGGI has been doing since 2014, 2015 on green investment services around climate finance. How can we complement that with additional forms of finance? And carbon finance, carbon trading is one of them. Article 6 being regarded as the highest level of integrity, and with our temptation of never starting with the simple stuff and always heading, our job is to go at the difficult end. That's why we headed in the direction of Article 6. So what does it do when it comes to activities? Let's see on a more practical basis. So looking at the way that it's designed, we're looking not only at raising awareness, we're also looking at that knowledge exchange and how do we help countries come together and exchange what are the challenges, what are the opportunities? And you've already seen that within the Green Growth Week presentations in other areas. And this is how can we accelerate that for Article 6 and carbon trading. It's also, what are we going to trade? How are we going to work out where the best place is to reduce emissions above and beyond our national commitments and our international commitments under the Paris Agreement, which are described in the NDCs? If we want to do more than that, what could it be? So it will also help with the design and the identification of mitigation activities. Then we move over to governance frameworks. And when we talk about governance frameworks in GGGI, what we're referring to here is the laws, the regulations, the PRACAS, the decree, the operations manuals of exactly how do you navigate in practical steps and carry out in practical steps what is needed to complete an Article 6 aligned carbon trade. How do you govern that as a host country government to ensure you don't oversell? And how can it be made as simple as possible, including very particularly the national priorities? So it is not the same. There will never be one global operational manual. It has to be tailored for the needs of each country. And then if we look at the transactions. So transactions, we kind of see, okay, it's very simple. You find a buyer, you sell it, you agree points, and you do a deal. Unfortunately, the contracts and the wording, it's very complicated. So the host countries need to understand exactly how what they are signing up to. They need to understand what the obligations are of these agreements. So we help to support both of those sides. And then again, the knowledge sharing. Moving on to my last slide. A little bit here on the development of transactions through the carbon transaction facility. So some may say, okay, I get it. So GGGI is identifying some projects. It has its own business. It has its own departments who do that. So that will be what will go into the carbon trust funds. No, it's also going to be where we're helping countries and they may have identified additional activities or where activities come in from the outside. So within and outside of readiness, our readiness facility work, we might identify activities where the host country says, yes, I like the idea of presenting and seeing what if buyers are interested in the activities that I am doing to do a trade. So then we will have for the majority a system called matchmaking. This is to even up the playing field and to say, instead of the buyers, and graciously all the buyers have agreed to this, instead of the buyers sitting there saying, just show me everything and I'll pick what I want, instead we're kind of turning the tables a little bit and saying, okay, here's something. We support the development of the project idea note. Here's an idea that we want to sell. Who is interested in buying? Turning around the beauty parade a little bit. But hopefully that allows everybody to have that increased confidence and feel that it's an even playing field. So the important bit is keeping everybody moving and going towards, because the objective of the carbon transaction facility ultimately is to open up the carbon markets. So not all participants partake in both readiness and the carbon trust fund. Some are just interested from an ODA point of view or otherwise to open up the markets. So you'll hear more about that in the panel discussion. Where are we now? I think I will just briefly say that we were very happy. We had the first meeting of the readiness facility as part of the carbon transaction platform today. And the first activities have been approved. So we have a global activity looking at that knowledge exchange and the culture of learning and increasing knowledge within a wide group of countries, as well as in-country support for both Rwanda and Sri Lanka. So we're very pleased to have approved that this morning. And finance-wise, I know everyone's very interested in the numbers. So as I turn to the next slide, and you can all get your phones out and hit the QR codes to find out more. I don't know if it works remotely online, but we will post this as well on our website. But so far, all the funds are open. So unlike most funds that have a limited time period to build funding, we know that everybody is different at different times. So currently, our readiness facility stands at 19 million with the hope of deployment over 5 years. And we have our first carbon trust fund open, thank you to Sweden, for now it's 32.5 million actually, as we've rolled over some of our previous work into the carbon trust fund. But I would say, please keep your ears and eyes to the ground. There will be more announcements at COP and towards the end of the year. I will finish there and we will move to a discussion, a panel discussion, after which there will be Q&A and then we will have closing from our president and chair. Shall I think we can probably stop sharing. There we go. Okay, perfect. So sorry, I won't say we ran out of staff, but it was, okay, so I am also going to be moderating the panel discussion and I may, if you don't mind, occasionally turn to you, Frank, for some comments. But let me first of all introduce the panelists to you because I'm not sure all of you know, as some are members and some are funders of GGGI. So first of all, we have Ali Cullen who is a manager within the area of climate finance and policy in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade of New Zealand. Welcome, Ali. Next, we have His Excellency Prabhath Chandra Kirthi, I think I said that right, hopefully, who is Secretary within the Ministry of Environment of Sri Lanka. Welcome. Next, we have Guri Sturas, who is a Deputy Director within the Norwegian Ministry of Climate and Environment. Welcome, Guri. And next we have Sandra Lindström, who is Head of International Climate Cooperation within the government of Sweden. And lastly, we have Madeleine Diouf-Sarr, who is currently now Director of Climate Change, Ecological Transition and Green Finance within the Ministry of Environment in Senegal. And again, I am very sorry, my French has not improved since the last time we met, so I do apologise, but thank you for saying that we will be able to conduct in English, but Frank can happily speak in French. So I have some very simple questions to put to the panel, and I want to hear from the panel rather than me. So if we start with New Zealand and move around New Zealand, Norway and Sweden as signed contributors to the Carbon Transaction Facility, what motivated your country to participate in the CTF, and what specific outcomes do you hope to achieve through the partnership?
Kia ora tātou, everybody, and DG Rose-Bursman. Tēnā koe, it's really nice to see you today. It's really great to be here at the launch of the Carbon Transaction Facility. I think we started talking with Fenella about 2 years ago. So here we are, and it's great to be here. So why did we want to participate? Well, firstly, New Zealand's been a partner of GGGI for a number of years now, with programs in the Pacific and in Southeast Asia, supporting countries to achieve low emissions, climate resilient development pathways. So this is really just a natural progression of our partnership with GGGI. We're particularly pleased to be supporting the CTF through the Article 6 Readiness Facility. We see this as an opportunity to get engaged early and supporting partner countries engage in what is a new and innovative stream of development and climate activity. Carbon pricing, building markets for carbon and building capacity to benefit from the markets will enable countries to prosper in a carbon-constrained world. And so New Zealand recognises this as a critical element of our climate-related support. New Zealand sees Article 6 as a cooperation as a really valuable tool in the toolkit to increasing global mitigation ambition and achieving the long-term temperature goals of the Paris Agreement. We know that many countries face financial and technological challenges to increasing their ambition, and engaging in Article 6 cooperation provides a source of finance that can be channeled to mitigation activities, including to and from the private sector. We know there are many countries, though, that are keen to engage in Article 6 cooperation, but require increased capacity and capability to do so, whether this be for developing strategic frameworks for cooperation, improving understanding across government and the private sector and how to engage in cooperation, and what is required under the Article 6 rules for identification of appropriate mitigation activities. So we are early joiners of the Readiness Facility because we know the urgency of providing the support to seller countries to engage successfully in carbon markets. But we're also attracted to the CTF more broadly because it not only offers support for developing countries who wish to take up the opportunities it provides for capacity building and identification of mitigation activities, but also provides a pathway to take these to market with potential for concrete cooperation with others who wish to engage either now or in the future to secure ITMOs for their own NDCs. So we've seen the promise early of the CTF, and we really look forward to the CTF realising this promise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ali. And it should be noted you were the first contributor, and we're very grateful to New Zealand for joining the CTF and kicking it off. But you have some friends now on the governing committee of the facility. So may I pass next? Guri.
Thank you. It's very exciting to be here today, and congratulations to GGGI for this major achievement. If you allow, I'll kind of take one step back and try to explain why Norway is engaged in the Article 6 at all. And I think my government, and as I'm sure everyone here realizes, that the NDCs, the current NDCs, they're not sufficient to reach the Paris temperature goals. And climate finance, super important, but that is still also not enough. What else can be done? There's a lot of good potential under Article 6. So my government has been engaged with this for a long time, and we're also planning to be engaged in the long run. So one thing is to have a backup if we won't reach the NDCs, which we hopefully will, but we also think it's important just to move beyond the NDC. So that's the reason why we're in it. And we partnered with GGGI for a long time on this, working through GGGI with partner countries. I think we've seen the same challenges as you have with this not being it's easier for sellers than for buyers. It is really difficult. You're not only going to mitigate, but you're going to sell, and you have to transfer and make sure you're reaching your own NDCs. So I think when you came up with this idea of trying to consolidate some of the readiness and learning and putting people together, we really liked the idea. And we think that GGGI is the right organization to do this. And also when it comes to the actual transactions, there are few organizations today that are equipped to administratively work on these programs, and also the trade. And through our long engagement with GGGI, we see that we believe that you can also take that role. Yeah, so we're very optimistic going forward. And you asked, what do we hope to achieve through the partnership? Well, obviously, more mitigation outcomes to reach the Paris temperature goals, and then concretely to sign MOPAs and to trade ITMOs. I'm using the lingo now. And also to be able to find suitable partner countries, if there are countries that are engaging in this or that are willing, that they actually know what needs to be done. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guri. And I don't, yeah, we shouldn't underestimate the words of, we've been working in some tough areas together for some time. Norway's particular focus historically has been on policy approaches, which were never managed under the Kyoto mechanism. So yes, and I think we would graciously say thank you for your patience and allowing us to try some approaches and then retry a slightly different way. It's not a perfect science. So thank you as well for your support. Now, may I move on to Sandra?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So also very pleased to be here in this panel today to participate in the launch of the Carbon Transaction Facility. We are excited to continue our journey of pioneering carbon market, and now together with GGGI. We started early with Article 6 in 2018, and we saw the same challenges that you mentioned earlier, Fenella. For various reasons, the rules were not there. There were not trust enough in the market. And therefore, we saw a strategic partnership with GGGI. So we also started our cooperation in 2019. And we have been very happy with that cooperation. Since then, we've been able to provide capacity building programs in a number of countries. And so going forward, with these challenges that you mentioned earlier, Fenella, there is really an important space for multilateral organizations such as the GGGI to provide a capacity building that is urgently needed. And when I say that, I actually mean including the donor countries, because we also need capacity building in this challenging space of Article 6. So Sweden is participating in the Article 6 readiness facility. We are also, as you mentioned, the first country to participate in a trust fund under the Carbon Transaction Facility, namely Article 6 Climate Cooperation Fund. Well, yeah, and you asked Fenella on what our expectations are. So one expectation is to strengthen the capacity building for countries, including donor countries. The second one is to develop and finance mitigation actions and develop and implement these mitigation actions through the carbon trust funds. And the third also to provide knowledge so that we can have a well-functioning carbon market. So I just also want to take this opportunity to thank you, GGGI, for the very good cooperation we have through these past years. And we're very much looking forward to continue the work with you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. And you touch on a really interesting point there of capacity building for the buyer countries, which everybody assumes isn't needed. And it reminds me of the fact that actually a member of your team spent 3 months here with our team on secondment in order to have that knowledge exchange between a buyer country and what we were fishing around and trying to identify and work out what the rules, the emerging rule book was meaning. So now let me turn. Thank you, all of you, for your kind words. And I don't know, Frank, if you wish to add anything briefly to that before we turn to the seller countries, or should we wait? Sure. So now the important thing is we always look at the structure of GGGI. Our continued presence in country puts our business model in a good position to help for the deep support that is needed for a complex area like Article 6. So I'd like to turn to someone who is a great friend and we've been dealing with for many years from the beginning of our work with Norway, and that's Madeleine. And Madeleine, I think, you know, you've had multiple roles since we started working with you, including chairing the LDC group within the UNFCCC negotiations. So really my question to you, and I know you work in multiple areas with GGGI, but specifically what lessons have you learned from GGGI's Article 6 readiness support so far? And how would you like to see the CTF expand on that foundation? Hit the button. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Fenella, and just want to use these opportunities being in this panel to thank GGI and partner of GGI for giving us these opportunities to through the readiness process to engage Senegal in the implementation process of Article 6 implementation. Senegal believe on the market, so we were been since the Kyoto Protocol trying to sell some carbon credit through the clean development mechanism, and as been said, we're moving to the Article 6 through the Paris Agreement, and we believe that market have his role in helping countries to implement the MDCs to achieve the engagement and also to increase the ambition that countries, particularly developing countries, are looking forward. As been said, we all engage on how really to play a role, and I think in combating climate change, this is an instrument that allows us to be part of this exercise. And I think the carbon market through the Article 6 will really open the opportunities for private sector from developing country, particularly Senegal, to be part of this contribution. So the market is used for our conditional NDCs. And with the support of GGI, we have been able to work on establishing the governance of Article 6 in Senegal through the development of national governance strategy for Article 6. And I think this was really a good instrument in order to bring all stakeholders together to look at what will look like the governance of Article 6, taking on board the lesson learned from the Kyoto market. I think it's important because we learn from Kyoto market, and we know that there is a need really to ensure that there is enough capacity at the national level in order really to be attractive, in order also to really make it happen through Article 6. We know it's complex because for the case of a program we're doing with GDI and with support of Norway is policy approach. But we are excited by this approach because it's go under selling only. It's taking on board all benefit we can gain from this market. So I just want to use this opportunity to really thank partner GDI. And also we expecting really to move from the strategy governance settlement to implementation action. So this is our expectation. Why I'm saying that? Because we want to show that this instrument is working. This instrument is highly beneficial for our all developing countries, and it's also a way to bring to bring private sector on board, to develop some benefit around like job creation. So this I think we expecting from this approach, and I hope implementing phase will be important for also learning process for us. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Madeleine. And I think, yes, music to quite a few people's ears here to hear that you want to move swiftly to implementation. Let me turn next to Your Excellency, Sri Lanka. How do you foresee the CTF supporting your country's climate goals? And what are the most critical areas to ensure readiness in Sri Lanka for international carbon markets?
Okay, thank you very much, Penela and DG and all the panel members and ladies and gentlemen. I think it's my privilege to speak about this the carbon transaction facility and the also with the global green institution with the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. So I think Sri Lanka is on the front line of climate change impacts. And we know that bold action is necessary to Sri Lanka to combat these climate change impacts. So at the moment, we have taken 3 initiatives to with the work with this Article 6 of the Paris Agreement and also the carbon transaction facility. First, we have developed the carbon trading policy framework with the support from the UNFCCC and its RCC Dubai. These days we are having a discussion to develop this carbon crediting framework and the guidelines. So before end of this year, we need to finalize that carbon crediting framework and the guidelines. And also we have approved, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the positive project area list. So we published the positive project area list in the websites under the 6 mitigation sectors, which are electricity, transport, industry, water, forestry, and agriculture as 6 mitigation sectors. Those any private sector investor can go through that positive list and the negative list as well. They can invest in the carbon crediting mechanism in Sri Lanka as well. And also we have joint crediting mechanism with Japan. We have signed MOU with the Japan government of Japan, and already we have approved 3 projects under this JCM, and also 1 project already started recently, 100 megawatt solar project in the north central area. And also we signed an agreement with the Singapore government, and also now we need to implementation agreement to sign soon before the start the COP29. We need to sign the implementation agreement as well. And also the integrated assessment of Article 6. We have initiated the integrated assessment of Article 6 with the UNFP, Copenhagen Climate Center, to tailor Article 6 mechanism to Sri Lanka context. And Sri Lanka Carbon Registry, we started with the support from the UNDP. These days we are developing the National Carbon Registry to ensure the transparency and accountability of carbon transaction. And also DNA for Article 6.4, our designated national authority for Article 6.4 under the Environment and Policy Division has been established, overseeing the approval of project to generate the carbon credits. So these kind of things we have initiated. We need to get support from the GGI and also the other Norway, Sweden, and Senegal country to carbon price in the system also to establish in Sri Lanka as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that's a perfect illustration of not only how complex the market is, but also how wide and varied the support is around the market. So one of the roles that or one of the things that has been very important for us is to coordinate with our peer organizations. So World Bank, UNDP, the UNFCCC, RCCs, and others to ensure that things aren't duplicated and that a single message is given to host countries, because you can only have one governance framework. So we need to coordinate together. So I'll very quickly turn to really a couple of points between Senegal and Sri Lanka here. So what I'd really like is, as an illustration of knowledge exchange, what would be your words of wisdom, of advice, Madeleine, to Sri Lanka to engage and with Article 6?
So thank you for your question. I think regarding the knowledge parties is we have different stakeholder. I think having a platform where we allowing countries who are implementing Article 6 and also having opportunity to have practitioners of Article 6 being together, I think is important. Why I'm saying that we're talking about maybe a sector like renewable energy. It's good to see from a different angle of countries how they see the implementation of Article 6 in among countries going on. I think this is interesting. So to learn from each country to another country, I think is important. To learn also around the governance system is important. Maybe we don't have the same approach on how to frame the governance from one country to another country, but we can learn on how it's done in a country in another, what this approach to another approach. I think this is important. But what we're looking as country is really to make it effective, to show that this instrument is really, as we say by Norway, is a climate finance instrument, but is particular, but is an opportunity really to implement our NDC, but to be more ambitious in our NDC, but also is having benefit not only for selling credit, but for other benefit. I think this is important. So as you mentioned at the beginning, confidence, how to bring this confidence. You bring this confidence by showing all these different parameters around this market. And I think putting country together is really an opportunity. Yeah. So
thank you, Madeleine. And I mean, I'd like to raise maybe one point that I've seen in Senegal that I've observed as being a really effective mechanism within the country for knowledge sharing, and that's the COMNAC committee, which I do know, happen to know, was Madeleine's idea within Senegal. And this is where they bring not only other ministries, but private sector actors and others together to debate points. And we have to remember Article 6 trading isn't a single ministry activity. So that seems to, from an outside perspective, I've seen that as being an extremely effective mechanism from Senegal. So the other way around, Sri Lanka, what would you ask, or what would you like to share? You know, there's a lot of activities that have happened already, but it's the start of the activities, just the regulations. So what would you like to ask Senegal about their progress, and any questions to Madeleine?
I think, thank you very much. We need international cooperation to develop our Article 6 climate finance project. Today morning also, I had several discussion to how to develop the bankable project to get involved with the private sector and also the international cooperation to the Sri Lanka carbon market to develop the climate finance, because we know that the as a NDC national target, we have to achieve the 70% renewable energy by 2030. And also we have to achieve develop our forest coverage by 2030 by 32%. Then we need to how their experience about the this kind of national NDC targets and also achieve the climate finance.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for that. Frank, you've heard from the buyers, the sellers, you know the structure as well as I do. So do you think it's set up as it should be? Do you think it will achieve all that the members here and everyone else thinks it will? You approved it.
Fingers crossed. I would say ready to move on. I would take up with Madeline and say people I think are now eager to see results, and what I've already discussed in a few places. I think it is a good opportunity. Welcome, our President and Chair, Mr. Van. Allow me to finish my comment. I think we've talked a lot about capacity building, about documents, about complex arrangements and so on. I think to make the market and to build on these discussions that you now have had with 20 countries, you kind of jump to switching the beauty parade and coming up with a project that would be offered to the buyers. In between, I think CTF could do a very useful role in developing what I would think of as a pipeline of ITMO potential, to show what are the kind of projects in these 20 countries that countries are willing to offer, what stage of development are these in. And I think that will both be relevant for the peers to see what others are offering, and it will give more transparency to the market in general, and particularly to the buyers as well. And that switches the discussion from how much money have we raised, how much money is available, to how many ITMOs are in the pipeline, and by when can we expect what kind of volumes. That, I think, is the best way that you could do a service to the transparency in the market.
Never want to stop giving me instructions.
Friendly advice.
Yes.
I have one more for you that I'd like to remind you, that we've had a number of discussions, and I can do it with a bit of a joke. You know, the easiest thing for ITMOs is obviously electric buses or solar panels, right? That's where you might want to start. More interesting to almost all of our member countries, it would be high biodiversity relevant ITMOs. And Fenella would say, I'd rather count buses than butterflies. They move around too much.
Butterflies.
But I think, frankly, what is of most interest to our buying countries would be, you know, mangrove rehabilitation, the billion tree planting that a number of our countries have, a lot of nature-based solutions. That's trickier. That's harder. But I think getting more agreement on standards and bringing buyers and sellers together around those harder to achieve ITMOs, I think that's the other area where I'd hope to see CTF make progress. My Christmas wish list for you, Fenella.
Thank you, Frank. Instructions are clear. And one step at a time, one step at a time. But yes, absolutely. Once there is world agreement on how to count the bugs and the butterflies, we will be doing it. So I want to take a very brief moment to a closing comment from each of the panelists as they wish to interpret it. Very, very briefly, so we may get a moment of question and answer before we have closing comments from our president and chair. And that is, when do you want a transaction to happen?
Thanks, Fenella. At the moment, as you know, New Zealand's really focused on opening the global market and making sure that everyone who wants to participate can participate. So that's our focus.
Sri Lanka.
Yes, The carbon transaction facility and Article 6 of the Paris Agreement offers Sri Lanka a unique opportunity to accelerate our climate goals while achieving sustainable development. Through an initiative like the readiness proposal for the GGI, CTF, and our ongoing partnerships, we are taking concentrate steps to strengthen our role in international carbon markets.
Super, thank you. Norway.
So we want trade to happen the sooner, the sooner the better. But
Right.
of course, it has to be it's really good programs. It has to have environmental integrity. So quality is just as important as the speed. But Norway is ready.
Perfect. Sweden.
We want to trade yesterday. We're ready. We're here. We have the money in the trust fund. But also, I just want to echo what Guri also mentioned with the environmental integrity, the contribution to sustainable development. Those are what will make the market trustable. So let's not forget that.
Yeah, so trade now, but trade right. Senegal, Madeleine.
Thank you. We are ready. Senegal is ready to embark on implementation of Article 6 project. We're looking for a good rate of carbon credit.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And just before we move to a couple of questions, we have a couple of questions and answers before we move to the closing. I'd like to just say something on a personal note. There's been, thanks from Frank to me, but this is never done alone. There's a whole team in CPU, most of whom are, or many of whom are sitting in the room. And I'd just like them all to wave their hand in the air a little bit, just to show that they're here. So please. They have willingly stayed late, worked over weekends, hit deadlines, taken my appalling spelling and fixed it in various things. So yeah, many thanks to them. But let's move. If there's a couple of quick questions, we'd be happy to take them to anyone. Please feel free to address them to anyone on the panel. Any questions? If we don't, then we can move straight to closing remarks. And okay, there are no hands in the room. So please, without hesitation, let me pass over to our President and Chair, Mr. Ban Ki-moon.
Thank you for giving me this floor. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and GGGI colleagues, Director General Ms. Berman, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining this event today to mark a very important step in our collective efforts to accelerate climate action and sustainable development. Although I had a very busy schedule today, I did not want to miss this important event with you. And I am very pleased to join just in time to launch the Carbon Transaction Facility, CTF. That's GGGI's initiative to scale up international carbon trading under Article 6 of the Paris Climate Change Agreement. GGGI is firmly committed to supporting its member states accelerate to green growth with the technical assistance and mobilization of necessary resources. And this bilateral cooperation under Article 6 of the Paris Climate Change Agreement offers another such a solution. It allows countries that are willing to go beyond their commitments to receive payments for taking ambitious climate action, and that otherwise may not have been possible. The outcomes achieved by implementing such projects can be utilized by other nations or entities that are seeking to increase their own climate ambition. In this way, carbon markets are an important mechanism to channel private sector investment into climate change mitigation projects and to unlocking much needed finance for developing states. This framework for international carbon trading under Article 6 is governed by Robert's set of rules established by the UNFCCC to preserve the integrity of the mechanism. And GGGI's role is to unlock these significant markets and to enable the flow of finance from those who can provide it to those who need it most. With GGGI's commitment to fostering transfer of technology and knowledge, the CTF, Carbon Transaction Facility, will enhance GGGI's efforts to make sure that no country is left behind and to create an even playing field for all member states and partners. The Carbon Transaction Facility is an exciting first for the GGGI. For example, it builds on GGGI's many successes of capacity building and technical assistance to now support transaction and manage funds, a combination that is critical to catalyzing the Article 6 carbon market. And the CTF is the first and the only international facility that is focused solely on expanding Article 6 carbon markets. It demonstrates GGGI's continued commitment to innovative and beneficial services to its member states and partners as we mobilize more green finance for more green projects. It shows that if we work together, we can create innovative financial mechanisms to drive green growth for future generations. And this is a fine example of how we can work together for a common green future. I'd like to thank again Director General Frank Riesberman and his very able, hardworking team for the great work to establish the Carbon Transaction Facility. And I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to the first 3 partners of CTF, New Zealand, Sweden, and Norway. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, with this, it is my pleasure to officially declare the Carbon Transaction Facility launched. Thank you for your cooperation and congratulations. Thank you.
Okay, if everybody will just bear with us for a moment, there is a signing of a poster. So if all the participants of the fund and our president and chair and DG Frank, if you would like to go over and sign the poster.